Now, I have to admit, I didn't react to these pictures at first because, like a lot of people,
This is our new 7 dwarves. But they're not dwarves anymore. They're 7 magical creatures. But one of them is still a dwarf. Somebody explain to me why this needed to happen. Welcome back to Real Talk Corner in the building. I am your host, Ariana, the Quantum Healer. My co host is not with me tonight, but we're going to get into it. I have a special, not special, because I mean, every fucking episode is special. But tonight we're going to be talking about the woke Snow White apparently remake that Disney is doing, and everybody's talking about it right now. So we are going to talk about it too. My problem with you're going to see it when we start watching this, but the problem with this is this whole trying to include everybody in everything. I really feel like people need to take a step back and ask themselves, why do they need to fit into every space that there is in this world? There's a reason we have differences. There's a reason there are spaces that people go and the things that they like. You got to be such a fucking narcissist to think that you need to be in every space at every moment and be welcomed wholeheartedly. What does that say about you? So I just think we've gone overboard with this whole inclusion shit and everybody trying to make everybody else feel special. And I get it. We can be nice people, but still have our our things that make us who we are. So we're gonna look into it. I just, you guys, you just start looking at this shit. And you're like, when does it end? Where does it end? Because nobody will ever feel completely um good somewhere. It's always going to be some shit. It's always going to be something. Somebody's always going to feel left out. And so we keep bending society to try to make everybody feel included all the time. And it's just like, when you look at stairs, right? This is the example I'm going to give you. When you look at stairs, there are people that are disabled that are in wheelchairs, right? They can't get up the stairs, but did they take the stairs away? No, they did not. They built ramps for those people on the other side so that they can get up. I don't see why we need to change what is existing all the time to make everybody feel better about themselves. But hey, let's we're gonna get into the woke Snow White bullshit. I really don't understand why this is a thing. I don't understand why um, Disney is trying to redo um, all of. It's like Disney is trying to redo everything, but it's just remakes. So it's just remakes though. It's not like we're going to make a new movie. We're not going to create a new character because we want to be all inclusive, right? We're not going to create another character. We're just going to keep taking white characters and we're going to keep changing them to try to create them to be other races. I don't understand that. They were made white, leave them white. I don't get offended about it. If you want to make a Latin princess, make a fucking Latin princess. If you want to make a black one, make another black one. Tiana was there. If you want to make another one, make another one. We got Mulan. I mean, make another one. How hard is it to fucking get a storyline? As much money as Disney brings in, I'm trying to figure out why is it that we're sitting here with no ideas. Y'all could hire me. I could create some fucking Disney princesses for your ass. I'm just saying. Just saying. All right, let's get into this shit because it's like, what is going on? I'm not understanding this, y'all. I'm not understanding this. I'm definitely sitting here like, what the hell is going on?
All right, James, you've got no problem with what Disney are doing. You think this is progressive and inclusive and all those moaning about it should shut up.
I think you should live in the 1930s, actually, Piers, because that's where you belong, really, listening to what you were just saying then. Also, I'm going to quote Warwick Davis, because he said he finds it patronizing when people are offended on his behalf. And you've just spent a 5-minute monologue being offended on his behalf. And I think that's ridiculous.
Well, let me bring in Dylan, because Dylan is also offended, and he happens to be a dwarf actor. Dylan, I've got to say, I was very curious when I saw what Peter Dinklage came out and said, because I did wonder who appointed him the head of the dwarf actor community. And it turns out nobody did other than him. And the people who it seems to me have really suffered in all this are the 6 dwarf actors who would have expected to have roles in this remake in a massive Hollywood blockbuster, who are now not going to have that experience, all the money, all the fame that may have come with that. What is your response to that?
So it's not a progression at all to me. My issue with it is exactly what you said. There are actors, dwarf actors, that live that dream to be in a major motion picture such as this Disney remake. And now, because Peter Dinklage said what he said last year, now it's taken away. And it's taken away because of quote unquote progression and all of that. And it's not right. Because these are roles made for actors of my stature, roles that aren't ever really given. I can't go out for the Harrison Ford or the George Clooney roles because that's not for me. These dwarf roles are for people of my stature.
Right.
And now it's taken away. I don't feel that's right. And not only that, but now think about the additional stunt actors or body doubles or that. Now you're talking multiple actors of my stature that don't get these major roles. And why? What's the reasoning? Because we're supposed to be progressive and we're supposed to just not view them as that.
Well, you know, the
these
irony,
were heroes.
the
All
irony,
of these.
Okay, before we go too far in this, I want to show you guys a little bit of the Snow White, because I do agree with him on that side where dwarves don't have that many opportunities when it comes to their roles. So when you take a role away from them like that and you give it to someone who isn't a dwarf, you are taking away that. You are taking away their ability to act and the stunt double. So I don't feel like they should be taken away because there aren't that many positions. It's like, why would you? I get that, we have our favorite actors and stuff, but besides like elves and dwarves in some of these movies, they're very limited. There are some actors like Peter Dinklage, who is one in how many that have got multiple roles. And he's been one of the few to play several characters, in these different roles, and he's had a great career, but not everybody gets that, those roles. Not everybody gets that ability. So I do think they shouldn't. I think they should employ real dwarves to play the damn parts, but let's look at this real quick. I want you guys to see.
Believe that Disney are experiencing some kind of corporate survivor's guilt for all the money they've made over the years, and have resolved to do everything in their power to correct that mistake, whether it's tanking every single brand under their umbrella or getting into ridiculous Snow White and the 7 Dwarves. Oh wait, sorry, Snow White and the 7 magical, diverse, gender, non-conforming, vertically challenged creatures.
Thank you.
The thing is, Snow White is a bit of a special one for the Disney Corporation because it was their very first feature-length animated movie made by Walt himself way back in 1937. Taking its inspiration from a 19th century German fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm, it tells the story of a beautiful young woman who gets betrayed by her evil stepmother and eventually takes refuge in a forest with 7 dwarfs who give her shelter and protection. And when the evil stepmother comes back to finish the job, they risk their lives to defend her until eventually she gets found by the handsome prince and brought back to life with a true love's kiss. It was a timeless story of betrayal, friendship, loyalty, sacrifice, and the redeeming power of love. And adjusted for inflation, it's still the highest grossing animated film of all time, and one of the most important movies in the history of cinema. Now, call me crazy if you like, but something tells me this remake isn't going to be so well regarded. The problems began early on with the casting of Rachel Zegler as Snow White. Now, why was this a problem, you might ask? Well, the original German folktale describes the character as follows. Schneewittchen hat Lippen rot von einer Rose, Haar schwarz wie Ebenholz und Haut weiß wie Schnee. Or, in less world-dominating terms, Snow White had lips red as a rose, hair black as ebony, and skin white as snow. Skin white as snow. Skin white as snow. Sure, okay.
Again, it's not about that we don't want to see a Latina in this part, right? We would love to see a major princess. I know I would. But not to say that there haven't been some other characters that are Latina, but what I'm saying is, but Snow White is Snow White. Snow White is white. She's like, she was white. You got to have white, pale skin. Like, that's the character. I know we want to upgrade, and we not upgrade, because I do not call this an upgrade. I know we want to remake, and again, we want to do something new. But again, why are we taking Snow White and remaking it? Just make a new character. Like, that's what I don't understand. Like, make a whole new character.
I mean, you'd think that Disney might have learned from The Little Mermaid that imposing 21st century American cultural norms by race swapping major characters from popular European fairy tales doesn't tend to go down too well, but whatever. As long as they nailed the characterization and stayed true to the themes and ideas of the original story, I'm sure it would all be fine.
This Snow White is going to have a modern edge to her, a modern edge to her, a modern edge to her.
Cartoon was so focused on her finding true love, and it's really not even in her mind at all in this film. So focused on becoming the leader and how to find her own agency.
Of course she does. Because why have a story about the redeeming power of love when we can focus instead on the only thing that truly matters in life? You. Don't you see? It's about what you want, what's best for you, what makes you happy, and everyone else can go fuck themselves. Now, where have I heard this sentiment before?
It's also updated with the current times, It's not just all about a boy, It's all about what she wants for herself.
Jesus, it's like a bunch of robots that have all been given the latest software download at the same time. I love how Disney are
We're going to talk about The Little Mermaid on another one. I was a big Little Mermaid fan. I loved Little Mermaid when it came out. I loved everything about it. It didn't matter to me that she was a white girl with red hair. Like, kids don't fucking give a shit. I know that we want people that look like our children, that our children can look up to, but some of these characters have already been created and made. I would say go make these characters, make them and bring them to life if you want to see them. We can sit around and bitch and complain about, there's not enough ethnic, there's not enough Black or Spanish or whatever cultured cartoons or whatever, or parts, but you need to get out there and make them, fund them, go out there and support your local people who are creating and bring them to life. But this remaking shit, I'm not a fan. I was fine with Little Mermaid the way it was. All of the fucking princesses were damsels in distress. And I think that no matter how much this whole modern woman bullshit is floating around, I don't need a man, I could do everything by myself. At some point, you're going to look back and be like, damn, I do need a man. And there's nothing wrong with true love. There's nothing wrong with, it's like we're trying to say that love doesn't exist and fuck love. And like, romance is beautiful. Yes, a lot of us held on to them fucking fairy tales and some of us did take it to heart, but there's nothing wrong with it. So I think this whole changing this whole thing of these girls not wanting these men, and it's far from the mind, it's still the story. It's the story. It was the story. Look at when these cartoons were created. Again, make a new one if you don't want it to be that way. Make a whole new one with a new woke vibe. But you're taking away, to me, you're taking away things that we grew up on that we had no problem with. I had no problem with any of the fucking princesses. I actually always loved Disney. I loved every Disney movie that came out, from the Disney princesses to Lady and the Tramp to, to all of these wonderful cartoons. And I was, my kids were Disney kids because we always watched all of the Disney stuff that came out. But now I'm like, what are we doing here? All right, whatever.
Still trying to sell this idea of strong, self-actualized female protagonists pursuing their life goals without the help of a man, as if it's some crazy new idea that's never been tried before, instead of, the plot of literally every single movie and TV show they've made in the past 10 years. This isn't new or inventive anymore, and you're not impressing anyone with this shit. In fact, all you're really doing is taking away timeless elements of the original story and replacing them with a vacuous, shallow, and ultimately meaningless facade of female empowerment. You don't need a man. You don't need love. You don't need attachments to other people, in fact. You just need to be strong, be empowered, be a leader, and buy more of our products. I mean, okay, maybe the main character is a bit of a bust, but what about the dwarves? I mean, really, they were as much of a collective protagonist in the original movie as Snow White herself. They went through a real character arc together. They learned to work together, to take advantage of their unique skills, to risk their lives for someone else, and ultimately they learned the value of friendship, loyalty, and sacrifice. Oh wait, they're not actually dwarves anymore. Not since the towering intellect of Peter Dinklage weighed in on the film and decided that the portrayal of dwarves in the original movie was backwards and insulting.
Are you serious?
Peter, mate, you understand that those characters were actually the fantasy species of dwarf and not actual humans afflicted with dwarfism, right? Either way, the result was the same. Someone was angry and things had to change. The dwarves were shit-canned and changed into magical forest creatures, whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean, and 7 roles that could have been played by dwarf actors were basically erased.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Honestly, you'd think that Peter would have been the bigger man and given his fellow actors a chance, but I guess not. Maybe he's got an elevated sense of his own importance or something. So let's consider what we've got so far with this thing. A classic European fairy tale about a young woman with skin as white as snow, played by an actress of Colombian descent, so that everyone can see themselves in 19th century German folklore. A story about the search for true love that's no longer about true love, in order to avoid offending the lonely middle-aged feminists that'll never actually watch the movie in the first place, and supported by 7 dwarves that are no longer dwarves in order to avoid offending Peter Dinklage.
Fuck.
But hey, at least it'll probably look good, right? I mean, these live-action movies cost hundreds of millions of dollars, so you can bet it's going to be up there on screen for all to see. Now, I have to admit, I didn't react to these pictures at first because, like a lot of people,
This is our new 7 dwarves. But they're not dwarves anymore. They're 7 magical creatures. But one of them is still a dwarf. Somebody explain to me why this needed to happen. And the fact it looks so fucking low budget that it looks like a play that kids got together and fucking decided to do. I don't understand the point of this, just to be inclusive, right? We got white, mixed, black, who fucking knows? And then we have the Hispanics, Snow White. I don't understand why are we doing this. Again, it takes nothing. You spend all this money on this remake. It takes nothing to fucking create a new princess. I'm not getting it. I'm not understanding it. Just so we can. It makes no sense to me. And I do agree. We're going to go back to the Piers Morgan show, because I do agree that this took away 6 other parts that could have been to other dwarves, and they could have been in a feature film as well as made decent money, and their stunt doubles could have made decent money and been in this film and been recognized on a project. And I think that right there is the biggest part of what I don't like about it. Not to mention changing the whole storyline. Those don't look like magical creatures to me. I mean, maybe afterward at the end, when they do the whole CGI, they'll look like magical creatures, but you couldn't pay me enough to believe that they look like magical creatures. It looks very low budget. It looks bad. And there was nothing wrong with Seven Dwarfs. Seven Dwarfs was not talking shit about dwarfism. It's a real thing. People are dwarves. They know that they're dwarves. That's not the issue. So casting them as dwarves is not disrespectful. So it's fucking mind-boggling to me of just the way that people are. It's just, what the fuck is going on, y'all? Why are we in this place? Why are we in this place?
Dwarves, all of these dwarves took care of Snow White.
Right.
They all had characteristics, separate characteristics. They weren't these cave-dwelling monsters that people speak of. They all had 7 different characteristics for 7 different actors that from my community, and I don't feel it's right that got taken away
completely
from us.
and utterly agree with you. And the irony is that they profess, these progressives, to want to do this to protect you, right? They protect dwarf actors from being, somehow smeared, but you don't feel that way at all.
Peter Dinklage spoke up about this, and that was my issue. He had in the past no issue cashing checks that were made for dwarf roles like Elf and all of that. Yes, he blew away the barriers when he did his roles that weren't necessarily made for a dwarf, but the Elf role was made for a dwarf. That check cleared just fine. So now that he's gone and done that, the progression of dwarf actors, it just doesn't sit right with me.
No,
this guy who is exactly what you said, what gave him the voice for all of our community?
Yeah,
why?
I was honest. I think a complete hypocrite. Let me bring James back in. So
when
James,
Piers Morgan is agreeing with you, I think you need to be concerned. I'll say that for the.
So you're telling a dwarf actor what he should feel. Having literally just lectured me about speaking for someone in the dwarf community, Warwick Davis, you now accuse a dwarf actor.
No, it's not what I said. I said that if you're siding with anyone, you've got to worry. Right. What I'd like to say actually is that I kind of mostly agree with what you're saying.
Now you're. Sir, that's just taking a pot shot there.
No,
saying,
it is absolutely taking a pot shot. But I do agree with what you're saying. I completely agree with your point of view, and I think that's really important. But I can only speak from my experience. And as a gay man, I know that growing up, I witnessed gay people being villains in movies when I was
7 dwarves aren't villains.
And that I think
Anybody else remember movies that made gay people villains? Because I don't remember villains being gay people. I don't remember that being a thing. Were there less roles about gay people? Yeah. Were a lot of straight actors playing gay? Yeah. Some of those actors we know are gay now. They weren't straight. But somebody drop a comment if you know of any movies or shows that portrayed gay people as villains. I don't remember any shows that had gay people as serial killers, and that was the subject of the show. So somebody drop me a comment if you have ever heard that, because for me, that's not a thing. I don't ever remember that being a thing.
Stereotypes are really important to
what stereotype do you think they represent?
In the universe of Snow White, wouldn't it be better if dwarves
this isn't a part of this about the stereotype.
Right.
This is about roles that were made for people of my stature that don't have the chance to go out for other roles normally.
But you, James
So
Bond,
why are we
you want to
taking-
stop Dylan
I am
getting
not,
a role in a Hollywood
Piers, I
film?
am not going to get into an attack on a dwarf.
You don't want a dwarf actor to
No, I
land
do.
a role
I do,
playing
actually.
a dwarf part.
Listen, a
Why?
dwarf can play a dwarf part, but I think it's important to change narratives that don't fit in today's society. And really, it
Which
might
is
be
that
better.
narrative?
It might be better
What's the-
if dwarves
sir-
just exist
sir,
in
pardon
normal
me.
roles everywhere,
What's-
because they do exist.
What was
in
so
real
bad
life.
about the way dwarves were depicted in Snow White? Have I missed something?
Well, listen, I'm not here to talk about.
That's what I'm kind of
Well,
wondering.
well,
as
I
well.
don't
Tell us.
represent Disney, but I'm just saying I think I see their point of view.
What's their point of view? What was so bad about the depiction of the dwarves?
Why?
This is the problem with the whole wokeism. Like he's saying, oh, they should fit. Not to say that they shouldn't get other roles. Just like we know that everybody should get more roles in society. I did not grow up seeing a bunch of dwarves. I'm sorry, I can't say that that's been my life. I think I've seen one dwarf in my whole life, maybe two, if I'm thinking correctly, maybe two actual dwarves that I've ever seen in my life. So for me, that hasn't been a normal thing in my life. That hasn't been something that I have seen. But I've had no problems watching Peter Dinklage on most of his shows, not just Game of Thrones. He was on Nip Tuck. If you guys remember that one, he was on that one. I loved his character on that one. I know he's played a lot of other things, but those are the two off the top of my head that I love the character he played. So I don't feel though that now we have to, in every show, you got to have a dwarf because it got to be inclusive. Every show we got to have a black person. Every show we got to have a Latino. Every show we got to put a Native American in there. Otherwise, we're gonna get in trouble. Some stories are about particular places, people, cultures, cities, states, genres. You know what I mean? There's certain films that call for certain actors. And I'm not saying there isn't an issue. There's an issue every fucking where, everything. But now that we need to include and make everything more inclusive, well, if you were trying to help the dwarves, you'd be pushing for them to have their fucking 7 dwarves with Snow White. You wouldn't be pushing for them to change to magical creatures. Because who is including inclusive magical creatures? I think it's a crock of shit. It's a crock of shit. That was 7 roles that should have went to 7 dwarf actors and their fucking stunt doubles. And the woke culture is telling us that we need to change with the times. What the fuck does that mean? So are we including magical creatures into our reality? Because I mean, not that they don't exist, but last I checked, they weren't in this realm as known. They damn sure ain't showing themselves to us. So I'm just kind of confused on what's the change that we need to happen. Why is this that we need to change? And now people are trying not to offend dwarves by casting them as dwarves. The fuck? That's like offending a black person for casting them in a black role. I'm sorry. Last I checked, you were black, right? Wait, what? People in this bullshit get on my last nerves. This is the sad part about our culture these days. The society, I won't say my culture because this ain't my culture, but this is a society, this weak ass society that's butthurt off of every fucking thing and has no skin to take disappointment or rejection. It is sad. People cannot take rejection. Everything is personal. Everything is taken as a personal shot towards them. You can't say shit without someone being fucking offended these days. And it's just annoying. It really is annoying.
Why are you
What's the
so
point of view?
upset about a movie changing with the times and moving forward?
Because I think that honestly, with great respect,
there is real news we could be discussing.
No, but this is real news if you're a dwarf actor who are now out of work because of virtue signaling idiots.
But you're just
who
using
think that
this-
everything has to be rewritten
You are just
to be
using Dylan
inclusive.
as a cheap.
You see that shit? We should be changing things and then say, oh, we shouldn't be talking about this. This isn't real news. It is. This is very important to the dwarf actors. And that's the point. This is the point of the woke agenda. The woke agenda only gives a fuck about the things that they care about. Everything else, they don't. It's just, let's make noise. Let's talk shit. Let's put everything down. And then, and then we'll sit back and go, yeah, sure. Whatever you say. Let's go talk about more important stuff. You're making all this noise. You're up on this program, and he's on this program a lot with Piers Morgan. So you're on this program making this noise, but then you're like, oh, we should talk about more important things. No, this is very important. It's important how you guys are changing shit, taking roles away, and then calling it changing with the times. How is this changing with the times and helping the dwarf community? Because I don't see how it's helping. How is it helping?
When it's shot, it's not inclusive at all.
No, you're using Dylan as a cheap shot to attack a Wokey.
I don't think Dylan feels I'm using him as a cheap shot. And what I would say about the Wokey thing is this. I have spent the last year listening to people tell me only gay actors should play gay parts. Only Welsh actors, so Michael Sheen, should play Welsh characters. And so on and so on and so on. But the moment we have dwarf roles, which are the most famous dwarf roles in Hollywood history, then the only people apparently who can't play them are dwarf actors.
Dwarf
and
roles.
I see there
it's a cartoon,
stinking woke hypocrisy.
It has not changed. It was a cartoon. Those weren't actually dwarfs in the movie. They were drawn, okay? So firstly...
They were drawn as dwarfs.
No, that is...
But it's a story about dwarves,
dwarfs.
Well, they shouldn't be called that. They should be called...
They shouldn't be called dwarves.
No, they should be called people with dwarfism.
They shouldn't be called...
What's wrong with being called dwarves?
Nothing, but that's not the correct
That's the story.
Dylan, apparently you're not allowed to call...
Did he just say it should be called the people with dwarfism? I cannot stand the woke community. We don't want to offend you. Dwarfism is a thing. Dwarf is a thing. Little people. I don't know. Like what is going on? It should be Snow White and the seven people with dwarfism. They're dwarves. They know that they are. They didn't wake up like, oh shit, I'm a dwarf. I didn't know that. No, they fucking know. All of this shit of not knowing what to call people, and everybody's so afraid to offend somebody because these days people go about all of these fucking identity fucking crisis bullshit, and no one knows what the fuck they are. Everybody's tiptoeing around what to call people because they have no fucking clue what to call anybody. And now we're going to attach the dwarves into all of this bullshit and say, nope, we need to rename you. So now we have to address you now as the people with dwarfism.
Apparently, Dylan, you're not allowed to call yourself dwarfs, apparently.
I would love to hear, what should I call myself, sir?
I think you should call yourself whatever you feel comfortable with, but as a person...
He calls himself a dwarf.
Well, that's great.
A dwarf.
Good for you. I'm happy.
So now, sir, let me pause that. So it shouldn't be called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Listen, I do not want to get cancelled because I think your point of view is more important than mine right now. But what I'm annoyed about is Piers trying to take a cheap shot at someone that believes in society moving forward.
Yeah, I'm actually exposing the hypocrisy of the woke mentality of only gay people can play gay parts, only trans actors can play trans parts, and so on and so on and so on.
I think we will get to a place where everyone can play
Snow
every
White
role.
and the Seven Dwarfs has to be cancelled because you're not allowed to have dwarf
You
actors.
should be happy, Piers, because it means that now you can play your dream role of Grumpy.
I would love to play Grumpy. I loved all the dwarves in that movie. They were great.
Let me ask you, you're being a hypocrite. You'd love to play Grumpy, but you're taking a role away from a dwarf
The issue
actor.
at hand...
No, I would play a fully grown Grump. Quite happily.
By taking away a role from a
Let me ask you, Dylan, about the Hugh Grant playing an Oompa Loompa, because again, it seems to me, we've got a clip of him playing an Oompa Loompa. Let's have a look at this.
I am a perfectly respectable size for an Oompa Loompa.
An Oompa what now?
Allow me to refresh your memory.
Oh, I don't think I want to hear that.
Too late. I've started dancing now. Once we've started, we can't stop.
So you're the funny little man who's been followed.
Now, they use CGI there, Dylan, to effectively make him into an Oompa Loompa dwarf.
So now...
What do you feel about that?
Yes, sir. So now we're not only using CGI and spending extra money and funding for these movies when we could just cast dwarves in that role.
Right.
Whether it be one dwarf or multiple, that like they have been in the past. Now you're taking at least one role away or multiple roles away for Oompa Loompa characters. That's what they were in the past. And why, again, I go back to my stance on these roles in Hollywood in general are very hard for people of my community to get, besides the elf and the leprechaun and this and that. So why are they being taken from my community? That's my issue here.
Well,
It's
you know
not
why?
anything about the
Dylan?
stereotypes.
You know why?
or
Because
anything.
people like James here, they think it's progressive and inclusive.
Nah,
when in
see,
fact it's regressive.
those are not my words,
it's
actually.
regressive
Piers,
and exclusive.
they are your words.
Pierce,
Dylan?
Pierce, I will agree with the mindset of it's not right. I don't know. James seems to be in partial agreement with me on the dwarf actors and the roles with that these should be. But I don't, on the other stuff, I can't speak on that. Obviously, I'm focused fully on the dwarf community really losing roles in these films.
Yeah, I think James started
with all the SAG strikes, with all the writer strikes.
Yeah,
and
well, I do agree with you, and I think all I'm trying to say is that I think it's a nuanced conversation, and there's a few different points of view that are valid. And ultimately, in my experience as a gay man, the reason we're upset about gay people not getting gay roles in movies is because we're not getting straight roles as well. And until we are, it's unfair that those roles are taken away from us. So in that respect,
What's that got to do with dwarf actors? Because they can't play regular sized parts.
I think Peter Dinklage's original point is that he would like to see more dwarves in films in general, not just playing dwarves.
In general, literally, a person of my stature should be able to go out for the same as a 6'5", 200-pound human. But it's just not that way. And I'm okay with that. In reality, I'm okay with that. It's understandable to me. But when it's these roles that are made for people of my stature, that's where I have the issue.
You know what, Dylan? The movie, one of the great movies of all time, is called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. If dwarf actors in Hollywood are not picked to play those roles, I don't know what roles you're supposed to be playing. It's unbelievably patronizing. They've done this under the banner of so-called progression.
And it's not, again, like I said, these dwarves in that movie or in this story aren't viewed poorly, I don't believe. No. They're all separate characters that are actually heroes for this lady.
Yes.
And they take care and they take this lady in.
They save her.
They're viewed so well to society.
They saved the woman.
Now
they're hardworking, they're wealthy, they are kind, they are generous-hearted. It's hard to think of a more positive narrative about any people at all.
Well, let's just go back to the 1930s, Piers. I think you'd be happy.
You know what, James?
Blackface would exist.
No, it's not blackface.
James,
it's not blackface. And what you're now doing, because you know you've lost the argument.
No, there's no argument.
And you know you've been embarrassed by the argument.
You're not embarrassed.
You are
embarrassed. An argument that doesn't exist.
Hold on, guys.
We agree with each other.
Please.
All right. You know what? You do agree with him now because you realize the futility of your argument.
James, you can't go, oh, you got to go back to 1930s. No, James, if you agree with what I'm saying,
I agree with what you're saying. I don't agree with anything that Piers.
Yeah, here's the thing, Dylan. Dylan, just to be clear.
He literally just said what I said, James.
Dylan, just to be clear, he doesn't agree when I say it, but when you say it, he agrees.
Because you're not a dwarf.
That right now, I'm not a dwarf, no. But that right there is the hypocrisy.
Y'all just heard that, right? You only can agree when a dwarf says it. You can't agree when somebody that's not a dwarf says the dwarf should be playing dwarf roles in films. This is the wokeism. This is the bullshit. I'm not understanding this. Like, I'm not getting it. What? We can't have opinions anymore? Just like he was like, I think you should call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. Do you want to call yourself Flapjack? Do it. Whatever makes you comfortable. What is going on? Why is this the fucking culture of insanity? I swear this is like the Society of Mental Health Issues, and nobody is seeing it. Everybody is like, yeah, sure. You got mental issues? Hey, be whatever you fucking want to be. Like, what the fuck? What the hell? Oh.
Of the woke brigade. Dylan,
Well, okay. So let me
just say, Dylan, I've got to let go,
Pierce,
unfortunately.
real quickly, please. Pierce, quickly.
Final word, Dylan.
Pierce wrote James, let me ask you this. So if a writer writes a piece on what I'm saying, is it wrong of them? Because essentially that's the same as the words coming out of my mouth.
What? Yeah, but you're not saying that I am a woke hypocrite and Piers is, and that's what I disagree with. Because I'm absolutely not. So when I'm saying that I disagree with Piers,
yeah. Actually, I found something on Peter Dinklage, which he's getting slack for what he talked about in a year ago. But let's see, as he actually was criticizing Disney about their choice. So let's see, has he changed his tune about what happened? Let's see.
Disney's live-action remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, accusing the studio of double standards and calling on Disney to reassess the entire project.
Now, while the cast is racially diverse, with Latina actress Rachel Ziegler playing Snow White, Peter called out the other damaging stereotypes seen elsewhere in the story as he spoke on Mark Maron's WTF podcast.
There's a lot of hypocrisy going on, I got to say, from being somebody who's a little bit unique, front row seat to some.
Really? Like what? Like what do you see?
Well, it's really progressive to cast literally no offense to anything, but I was a little taken back by the they're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White.
Yeah.
But you're still telling the story of Snow White,
yeah.
Seven Dwarfs.
Sure.
So, take a step back and look at what you're doing there.
Yeah.
I know. That makes no sense to me.
Well,
you're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of seven dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough. I don't know what studio that is, but they were so proud of that, and all love and respect to the actress and to the people who thought they were doing the right thing. But I'm just like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting with Peter Dinklage because it takes a Peter Dinklage to point that out, where everybody was like, yeah, oh my God, it's amazing, and then you hear his perspective. But that's like with everything else. It's it only takes one person to sort of point something out, and then you're like, oh yeah, right.
Yeah. I'm with Peter on this one.
Yeah.
My thing is, like, I realize that there is a love for certain classic movies and cartoons. There are a lot of things that just don't translate anymore. It just don't work anymore in 2022 with the things that we know and the way that we want to move forward. And I don't know, from my point of view, I kind of like, I don't need another Snow White. And again, like he's saying, no offense to the people putting it together, but I don't need another Snow White story. Aren't there other cultures that we can pull fairy tales from? Aren't there other cultures whose fairy tales haven't been told, whether animated or live action specifically? Do we need to tell these ones over and over and over again? That's my thought.
And I think that it's also, I think it's the name, right? It's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I don't think that if it was, Hobbit based or something like this, where these are sort of mythical characters, I think it's very much on the nose, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, all like little people all living together in a cave, as Peter said. But yeah, will they rethink it at all? I mean, I'm with you on, I'm good if we don't have another Snow White.
Yeah.
Real shit.
That they had to be fake. I mean, they've got to be right. There's no way a big budget movie could possibly look this shit. And for a few hours at least, it seemed like I was right. Then the confirmation came back from a Disney spokesman that they were in fact real photos from the movie set.
My God, they're real.
I just can't anymore, man. This right here is the decline of Western culture summed up in a single image, and this movie is the literal personification of everything wrong with modern entertainment. It's what happens when you're so desperate to showcase your progressive credentials and conform to the endlessly growing list of contradictory demands and nonsensical restrictions that you end up tying both of your creative hands behind your back. And what you ultimately produce is just as soulless, joyless, and pointless as the people you're desperately trying to win approval from. Because here's the thing, whenever you ask them what they want next, no matter how far you've already gone or how much you've sacrificed to try to appease them, the answer will always be the same. More. No matter how many concessions you make, how many problematic elements you mercilessly hack away from your story, how many progressive characters and themes and mindless talking points you awkwardly shove into your narrative, it will quite simply never be enough. There's always going to be another point of outrage, another demand for change, another rule that can't be broken, another piece of your creative freedom you're asked to give up, another piece of cultural heritage to be rewritten for a modern audience that doesn't exist. And you know what? They're fucking welcome to it. If this is the kind of sterile, loveless, charmless, creatively bankrupt propaganda that you choose to serve up, then best of luck to you. Because if the reactions online are anything to go by, you're absolutely gonna need it.
Yeah, it just like I said, when you look at this and this whole wokeism shit, and everybody's running around trying to make people feel better about bullshit, this is what you have. You have this, and I don't agree with it. I agree. We don't need another fucking Snow White. Create a new character. Just like, not to say that it wasn't cool to see the mermaid, but I'll tell you, I took my grandsons to watch. We watched the Mario movie, and they were showing the commercials before that, and the Little Mermaid popped up, and they're looking at it, and they were like, she's black, and my grandsons are darker than me. They're not white kids. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, why did they do that? And I was like, well, they decided to make her that color, to change it. And they were just like, that's stupid. And this is coming from kids. They're like, why? Because the Little Mermaid is the Little Mermaid. It is not that hard, people. I feel like grown-ups are the problem here. You guys are the ones that are making the race issues a thing. And I think that this is where you got to take a step back and stop tiptoeing and trying not to offend people, and just create beautiful stories. Again, if you guys want to see your ethnicity in a story, create a fucking production company. Somebody asked, why is what's his name? The one who plays Medea. What the fuck is his name? I don't know why I can't remember his name right now. Why doesn't he have any black cartoons that are positive out? I feel like you got to take a look at the people putting out the information or putting out the cartoons or the stories, and take a step back. I think that there's a lot more going on out there. And if you guys really want to see it, create it. That's what I have to say. If you want to see a new character, create it. Stop sitting here with this bullshit of remakes, because the Snow White and the 7 magical creatures is bullshit. That's my take on it. You guys drop me a comment. Let me know how you guys are feeling about this new rendition of Snow White. Me, it's bullshit. I mean, create a new character for the Latina, okay? Don't just stuff her into the white Snow White character and expect everybody to just be fucking okay with it, because I'm not. So, all right, you guys, until next time. Why? Because I always got some shit to say. That's why, right here on Real Talk Corner. Bye.